Workshop Farm. My name is Lisa Mason Ziegler, and I am happy to be coming to you here today. This is a kind of our debut, our second debut here on YouTube, and I was getting ready to do a little task here this morning, and I thought, you know what, I really ought to jump on here and share it with you guys. So before I show you, I'm going to actually be bumping up my little tomato seedlings from the small block to the 2-inch block, which I don't do very often. I don't do that for very many of our plants. Well, actually just for a couple out of the, up to 100 different varieties that we grow. So I'm gonna show you that, but I thought, since I'm kind of new over here on YouTube, I'd just tell you just a little bit about me and what I do. So I am a commercial cut flower farmer. I began flower farming in 1998, and my little urban farm is dead in the middle of the city. I am totally 100% surrounded by homes. And I'm actually the last commercial farmer in our city, which was once a very large Mennonite farming community. So I'm kind of a novelty around here, which is awesome for publicity. Not always good because the city doesn't always know what to do with me. But anyway, and my little farm has evolved through the years. When I started growing, I first started out just selling to florists, then farmers markets hit the scenes in the early 2000s, joined them. I've sold to supermarkets for several years, a couple of different chains. I sold up to 23 florists at the same time, as well as supermarket chains and doing farmers markets, as well as I sell through two from farm subscriptions, or actually programs. One is our bouquet subscriptions, where we drop bouquets off at businesses and also on customers' front porches into their buckets, as well as I have a members only on-farm flower market. Those are people that buy shares of my garden that are invited to come here to the farm at will. They do not have to, they don't come every week. Anyway, you can visit my website, thegardenersworkshop.com, and go to the store and go to fresh cut flowers, and it kind of gives the details. If you're a flower farmer and you're just hearing about this for the first time, all of our details, even though I think both the programs are actually sold out right now, the details are still there, so you can kind of see how they work. So, and through the years, I started lecturing and teaching. For about 10 years, I traveled for about 4 months out of the year, doing up to 100 lectures, traveling to speak to Master Gardener conferences, garden clubs, just a lot of different, at flower and garden shows and Mother Earth News, and a lot of different events. And then about 3 years ago, I decided to become rooted in like a turnip, y'all. I decided that I needed to stay home more, that traveling was wonderful, and I met so many wonderful people, but it was time for me to stay home from the farm and for us to become much more virtual. And so I made the next step of investing on our farm to have some serious Wi-Fi equipment installed. And that allows me to go live from my farm in a lot of different locations. And so I have been very active on Facebook and Instagram for several years now, and now here I am on YouTube. So that's kind of how I came to be here. I've written a couple of books. I have an online garden store where I only sell the same tools and supplies that I use, as well as the same seeds that I plant. We do not grow and save seeds. I just buy from seed houses, and we package them with my instructions on how we grow them. And you can pretty much count on they're all great cut flower seeds. So you can visit thegardenersworkshop.com anytime and check that all out, as well as I publish for other flower farmers online courses, as well as my own online course, Flower Farming School Online. And you can find information on all of those. We really have the tools for people that want to build a business based on flowers, whether you want a flower farm and then grow your business through expanding with growing bulbs, shrubs, and perennials, right up to hoop and greenhouse growing. My course is actually the basics of getting started, learning how to farm, get customers, learn how to sell, what to grow to make the biggest bucks quickest, And then we also have gardening on demand courses. So there's a lot of great stuff over there. And I've just added, I now have a podcast called Field and Garden. And it comes out, the new one comes out every Tuesday morning. And I invite you to subscribe and let me know what you actually think about that. So that's kind of where I'm coming from. So the gardenersworkshop.com is a wealth of resources and opportunities. And I just kind of, I am for anybody that wants to grow flowers, whether you're a home gardener, thinking about, I might want to be a flower farmer, to a newbie flower farmer right up to a season. My passion is to empower all people at all levels to grow. And for anybody that's a flower farmer or a budding flower farmer, let me tell you something. The flower farming, the growing cut flower business in this country alone, people spend $7 to $8 billion a year in the United States on cut flowers, y'all. And 80% of that at this point is imported. And until we knock that number way down, which I don't see happening for centuries, there's room for everybody. But the key is you have to become professional. And that's what our online courses are all about, is to help people to get from A to B the quickest, the most effective, the most cost effective, and to come out at the end as being a professional, sustainable cut flower grower. So what we're going to do here today is, so if you don't know, I am a huge soil blocker person. I wouldn't be a flower farmer today if it wasn't for soil blocking. I have no hoop or greenhouses. I do everything in this work building I'm sitting in as far as seed starting goes with grow lights, heat mats, grow lights, and racks, and a carport. And we, in our high production years, produced up to 100,000 seedlings a year, meaning throughout the seasons. That's one thing that I really try to hit home to people. If you're already feeling like you're behind or you're pressured, you need to let go of it. Because when you embrace becoming a seasonal gardener or farmer, meaning that you're living in the seasons, you don't have any structures, and you learn the art of succession planting, which is what drives farms, you learn that it spreads the work out. You're never behind because there's always something new to be done. We start seeds here. I'm in southeastern Virginia. I used to be 7B. I'm more 8A now. We can literally start seeds 12 months out of the year. And because when you embrace cool and warm season annuals, you've got it all covered, y'all. So there's always something to do. So you need to stop beating yourself up over being behind. My book, Vegetables Love Flowers, is really a book about a cutting garden, y'all, a 3-season cutting garden. It's about how flowers benefit vegetables. It's not a book about growing vegetables. And the way that you do that is with a cutting garden. And that book tells you what to grow, how to grow it, how to harvest it, succession planting, my organic practices. It's really a great go-to book for a 3-season cutting garden. And that's the miracle of creating a garden you can live with, y'all, that you can love, that you aren't always feeling, oh my, I remember the days of walking outside and all I saw was the things that I hadn't done. Y'all need to let that go. And that's what I hope to bring to you guys here on our times together. So the other thing you need to know is no telling what happens on this farm. The folks that work with me could walk in this door at any moment to go to the restroom or to get a drink, and that's just part of being live with Lisa. You just never know what's going to happen. My golden retriever, Tucker, who you will meet sometime, not today, he's in the house because my lawn people that just do our weed eating on our fence lines just left, so he couldn't be outside when they were here. So hope I didn't bore you guys too much with all that information. But now I am going to share with you what I actually am doing here today. So I was saying that I'm a soil blocker. So soil blocking allowed me to tweak it, to create it into what I call a tabletop version. If you see behind me, that's our little tabletop home gardener grow light behind me. And with some of our grow room was so full, y'all, our transplants of tomatoes, which I'm sorry to say this, but tomatoes are like, all vegetables are like second-class citizens here. I mean, flowers are our cash crop, y'all. They get top billing. So the tomatoes got bumped out here because the grow room was full, but today, guess what? The girls are planting. Anyway, so I learned about soil blocking from Elliot Coleman 25 years ago. Totally fell in love with it because on a little 5x7 tray, y'all, you can grow 40 transplants. These are 40 big beef tomatoes. And yes, I start 95% of all of our seeds in the small block. And 94% of them go straight to the garden. If this was a celosia or a zinnia or a ageratum, this would be getting planted straight in the garden. This is the size. They're looking beautiful. But tomatoes, we like to have a little bit bigger when it goes to the garden. And especially if you live in the north where you have a shorter growing season, you definitely want to bump these guys up. So the only things that the things that I can think of that I bump up are tomatoes, peppers, eggplant, eucalyptus, and I think that's all. All the other flowers that I grow that are started in the small block, which is most of them, go straight to the garden. The girls are actually planting them today. So I thought this is the job I was going to do this morning. I thought I'm just going to hop on here and let you guys see what I do. And then after I bump these up, I'll do this tray. And then I'll show you how I make these blocks. And I'm actually going to sow. The other time that I use the 2-inch block is when the seeds are too big to go in this block. That would be squash. And I need to start some squash plants for my nephew, Will. And so I thought, he's a new homeowner and he has made up this great big old vegetable garden. He comes from a big old family of gardeners. So his Aunt Lisa is starting him some squash. So, and all right, so I'm going to first drop you down here so you can actually see what I'm doing a little bit better than you can see me actually. And so I've already made the blocks up. So this is the 2-inch block with the insert installed on it. And y'all, you can find all the seed starting equipment, soil blockers, grow lights, heat mats, everything over on thegardenersworkshop.com. And I will say today is April 7th or 8th, I think. As of this moment, before I came on here, we still had everything in stock. So check it out. All right, so I will confess that these tomatoes are a smidgen bigger than I like to have them for transplanting. Let's make this so you can see both of the things that I'm doing. First off, the way that we mark all of our trays is masking tape or either painter's tape. And this is our garden mark. This is a marker. You'll find this at thegardenersworkshop.com also. This is made to withstand the UV rays and the outside moisture content. So you can write on, I'm just trying to figure out which way my tape's going here, y'all, before I... See, y'all, I don't think of everything. I literally come on to you live doing the job the way I was going to do it. And that's what... Let me get this kind of started. Let me make my little end here. All right, so I know which side I'm supposed to be writing on. So I am going to continue. So these tomatoes were started March 22nd. And the date is something that I try to keep with transplants so we have a good idea of when we started them. So I'm just putting big beef. We know they're tomatoes, right? And so we use tape. You might be able to see all the previous tapes on here. Masking tape holds up great. Sometimes I try to peel the tape off the tray, but I don't always have time. This one, that doesn't want to come off. All right, so this is the way that we mark our trays. Even if we're using the big cafeteria trays, which is what we use commercially, or, and let me show you this, and I don't want anybody chewing on me, these are foam, but these are not made to be disposable, y'all, because I always get, kind of vicious emails about people saying they can't believe that I use and sell these foam. These are just what your meat comes on, y'all, but we sell them for convenience. These are not made to be disposable. This is probably the 3rd or 4th year I have used this foam tray. You want to use the tray that fits the number of seeds that you're actually starting for that variety. And, you know, I do have an online course over on my website called Seed Starting Made Easy. It's $20, y'all. It's like 90 minutes long. It gives you all the ins and outs of why it is so significant that we fit the number of transplants, the same variety and colors to the tray to make the most out of heat mats, grow lights, and to grow best plants. So we mark our trays, whether it's foam or the plastic cafeteria trays. So this is, so let's just say for a minute these are celosias or zinnias or something, and I was going to be planting them outside in the garden. Literally, this is how I pick them up, and y'all just can't imagine how good these tomatoes smell. Oh my gosh. I mean, it's worth growing tomatoes year-round in little soil blocks just to be able to smell them. So you can see these are big beefs, and I actually bummed these tomato seeds off of one of my one of my vegetable growing friends, so there weren't quite enough of them. So y'all, I just broke this off, and I'm going to start up here. You'll be able to see what I'm doing here in a minute as I move along. So I'm literally breaking off the seedlings. Oh gosh, y'all, the roots are phenomenal. These are really perfect. And I'm just nestling those roots down. Now let me tell you something. Most often, I'm doing this late, and there's way too many roots. You'll be able to see what I'm doing here in just a minute as I move along. Normally, when I'm doing this, there's like all these hanging down. How do you get them in the hole? You want to know what I do? I just take a pair of scissors and cut the roots. I just cut right below the soil level and make it like this. Look at those roots. They're amazing. And by bumping these up, these are just going to go on to continue growing. And y'all, this is all, look at that. I can't help it, y'all. They're just absolutely fabulous. So one of the things that I really love about soil blocking is that you can handle seedlings this young. So let's just imagine if these were in a cell pack, and when the tomatoes are this small, you can't plant them. Younger plants thrive better when they're planted up into another container, not into a container, to the next size block. Because if you plant it, let's just say I see a lot of people doing this, and you know, to each their own. However, you do realize if you plant soil blocks up into some kind of container, you totally 100% lose the entire benefit of starting in soil blocks. Soil blocked plants do not, the roots air prune. They will definitely grow into their neighbor if you let them sit in the soil block too long, and that's perfectly okay. We do that all the time, and when you break them apart, it actually prunes the roots. When you put this soil block into some type of container, then that means that it almost within a couple of days, it starts circling and getting root bound, and you really just don't, you lose the benefit. I need to fix my camera, y'all. I'm going to move you back just a little bit and move this back just a little bit. And so for those of you that are just joining me, this is the 2-inch soil block that I use the inserts. I'm going to show you in just a moment here how I made these blocks. These are, let's see, March 22nd. What is today? Did we say April 7th? So what is that, like 20 days old or something? So these little transplants, these little tomatoes, these are big beef tomatoes. I am just literally dropping the blocks down into the hole that's made in the top of this 2-inch block. And y'all, that's it. That's the end of the story for transplanting. You don't do a bunch of stuff to it. Now, if you had waited too long, as I normally do, and I had a bunch of hanging down roots that you can't get into this hole, I would literally take a pair of scissors and just cut all the roots right at the bottom of that soil block. And you know, a couple of these have some roots hanging out of them. This is really the perfect size to move them up. But I will tell you, rarely does anything get done at the perfect time around here. So I am just literally dropping these babies in, oops, in their hole. And now when it comes time, because again, you know, I'll say that the vegetables don't get first, they aren't the top billing here on our flower farm. So the tomatoes typically are one of the last things to get planted. So this really buys time. So these guys will be happy and healthy. And so here is the other side. And so a question I often get are, why don't I just start the tomato seed in the big block, right? Well, y'all, that's a long story, but I will tell you the nutshell of it. That the problem with the reason we have such huge success with germination, sprouting, 100, you know, the rate of germination and how quickly they grow is because they are in this small mass of soil that is so easy to keep evenly moist and evenly warm to get them to sprout. When you put a little tiny seed on the top of this big block of I'm not sure I have enough big blocks for all these guys, so I'm picking and choosing y'all the best ones. If you put a little teeny seed on the top of this big block of soil, you're kind of creating the same situation you have when you use cell packs, which are sometimes so often difficult to maintain even moisture and even warmth throughout the plug. That's the problem with germination. And then there's the watering problem, right? The blocks are typically either wet on the top and dry on the bottom, or vice versa. Y'all, I'm just tearing these up. I'm trying to choose which ones I want to keep here. And so some of these tomato seedlings, you can see right 3 in a row, didn't sprout quite properly. See how the seed's still holding on? That was definitely an environmental problem. The fact that 3 of them in a row on one side did that meant I did something wrong there. So I'm gonna finish this up, and then I have another tray to do, but I'm gonna actually, oh, wait, something. One of the things I've learned about soil blocks is when they are moist like they are right now without a lot of roots running through them, I never touch moist new blocks with my fingers. I always use a plant marker of some kind. All right, y'all. So let's see if I can't find one more. How perfect is this? So something I just want to talk about for just a minute about what I think about. So I have a whole row over here that I'm going to use for something else. So one of the things that I think about when I'm putting blocks on a tray, do you notice how my blocks are not smashed up against each other? That there's actually space between the clusters of blocks? This does a couple of things. It allows air so that the blocks dry out properly in a 24-hour period, as well as water can freely run through here. So I wasn't sure how many tomato transplants I have, so I actually put these extra sets. I thought maybe I'd have enough to do all of them. But since we culled some of those that weren't perfect, well, not perfect, but I have more tomatoes than we need. So there's no reason for me to take up our time and our grow space with tomatoes that might not actually do well. So I'm just going to take these off. And I'm actually going to, let's do this. Actually, let's do this. And then I'll show you. I just thought of something, y'all. Let's see if I can successfully do this. First time ever on live doing this. You would never do this with the small blocks. So I'm just moving these 2-inch blocks over here to this small tray, which I am then gonna plant some squash in. Not perfect, but it's good enough, right? Saves me time from, I'm gonna show you how I make blocks. But you know that your blocks are good shape. Let's talk about the soil that we make these blocks out of. This is the complete opposite of any other seed starting mix. So I'm going to set these aside, but let me finish telling you this first. So now, see, I have this big well. This is where I water into. I never pour water onto the blocks. This allows me to water really quick because I have a whole grow room full of seedlings, right? So I am always going 100 miles an hour. Placing your blocks, having thought about placing them on the tray, allowing space between the clusters. If it's a 20, you know, the clusters are tight together, but the space between the clusters, you need to have just enough space, see there, that water and air can run through there, and it allows me to water really, really quickly. So let's talk about this soil blocking mix. We have the recipe on our website always. There's on my website, thegardenersworkshop.com. There is a learning center. Under the learning center is a menu item called All Things Soil Blocking. The recipes on there, as well as a lot of resources. We sell the ready-made mix. It has the nutrients in it, and it's just made out of peat moss, compost, and some rock nutrients, which is actually green sand and rock phosphate. It is ready to be ready mixed. You bring it home and dump it in and add water and you make your mix. What's different about it? All other seed starting mixes and potting soils are made to go in containers, and they have vermiculite and perlite in them, and that makes them crumbly, which is what you want in a container, right? So that air and water can flow through the soil. That is not true with these guys. You want these to be dense and compact. Now, you can make any soil block out of any soil. It's how it holds up over time. And we're also big believers of, we do not use sterile soil. We use compost-based soil, which is why my seedlings are so rockin' awesome, y'all. And I'll show you some of those in just a few minutes here. All right, so here are some squash seeds. Squash seeds are frankly too big to go into the small block. So what I do is once I put, and I'll show you all this in a minute, once I put the insert on the soil blocker to make the hole in the top of the 2-inch block to receive these awesome little seedlings we just potted up, I leave them on there. And what I do is literally just go through here and drop a seed. I've got to mark this tray, y'all, if I forget. What do you know? There's 8 seeds in here. All right, first off, we have to make, so you got to name everything right when you're doing it. And when I get on here yakety yakking, sometimes I forget. And you think you're going to remember. This is Zephyr squash. Zephyr is one of our favorites. We do not sell vegetable seeds, but you will find all of your flower farming, all of your cut flower seeds over on our website. I have to look at today's the 8th, y'all. I've been a day behind what's new. All right, so we're gonna put this on this tray so nobody has to guess. And we treat soil blocks just like every other seed starting method. These guys are gonna go in on a seedling heat mat until 50% of them pop through, which will be much quicker, and more of them will do it because they're on a heat mat, a seedling heat mat that warms the soil so everybody gets born at once. So now, what we're gonna have to do, because this seed, your seed packet should tell you, that's one of the things we tell you on our flower seed packets, does the seed get covered with soil or not, right? So squash seeds definitely need to have soil put on top of them. So I am now gonna just excuse myself for 1 minute and bring my blocking tray over here, and we're gonna put some soil on top of these, and I am gonna show you how I make these blocks. So back to the seed starting mix, or the blocking mix. So blocking mix is the complete opposite of what most seed starting mixes, well, really all of them, and potting soil. And so we sell the ready-made mix. We have so it's really funny because people just are not used to soil blocks, so I have to tell you this. So we sell a 5-quart bag, which is like $12. That little bag, which isn't much bigger, I don't have a bag right here with me. that bag will make 600 of these little soil blocks. 600, y'all. So that little bag goes such a long way. Well, we now have a jumbo box, which is 3 times that. So that jumbo box can make like up to 1,800 of the small guys. And so another reason that I always choose to use the small blocker versus the large blocker is so that small bag that makes 600 of these small blocks only makes 32 of these big blocks. And these big blocks, 40 small blocks fit on this tray, but guess what? Only 8 of these fit the big blocks. So there's a lot of reasons